So if you're just someone that's even been remotely involved in the debating or power scaling scene, you've probably heard of this guy's name before. Honest Voldigoad is very famous for being one of those solo your favorite verse type of characters. However, in the many different solo your favorite verse type of characters that I've seen, from Medaka to Dio over Heaven to Gilgamesh, I think Anos actually truly lives up to the hype of being able to solo your favorite verse, because not only does this guy have a whole Bible chapter of different abilities of what he can do, the quality of these abilities are so broken that I personally believe that if you gave any one of his abilities to a different character, they would instantly become a top tier threat in their respective verse. But then you gotta remember that Anos has all of those abilities for himself, so he is absolutely disgustingly broken, and we're definitely going to talk about him in today's video. Let's get ready to dive into Anos Voldigoad, starting off with his AP/destructive capability. Now, Anos has quite a bit of just different varying ridiculous feats throughout the series, and he's definitely one of those characters that you can cheese into lower tiers to just go absolutely ruin somebody's day. First and foremost, one of his lower end feats is that he's fighting Kanon, you know, the hero, his main rival in the series, with a stick, by the way. Kanon has like an actual sword. He's fighting with a stick just to kind of prove that he's absolutely broken. And during this fight, it's described that the forest is destroyed, the lakes were dried up, he blew away all of the clouds, which you guys know in the Versus community, blowing away clouds is actually really strong because for whatever reason, people forget that clouds actually have mass, and the fact that he blew all of them away is absolutely insane. But then to top it all off, it says that he vanished a mountain. So he just evaporated a mountain on some Dangai Ichigo versus Ascended Ice and nonsense. And keep in mind, he did it with a stick. So at the bare minimum, you could put this dude at mountain level, but you could definitely get this a bit higher because vaporizing or vanishing a mountain is definitely a lot stronger than just blowing it up. But again, this is just the absolute low end that I just thought was really funny to bring up because he does it with a stick. If we move into the later parts of Season 1, we have this scene where Anos throws this giant meteor at a lake and completely evaporates the lake. Now, I was going to go ahead and try to count this because evaporating a lake like that is actually extremely powerful. In fact, if you're one of the people that watches the Bleach content on this channel, you would know this is actually one of Ichigo's better feats when he completely evaporates a lake just by raising his Zanpakuto toes. But here's the crazy thing about this. When Anos fires that attack, he actually mentions that he's like, oh yeah, I actually used that same attack while I was asleep and I accidentally vaporized a country. So this also means that Anos can just casually throw around attacks that are anywhere from country plus to large country, depending again how you calculate the size of the countries. And funny enough, it's an attack that he can just do in his sleep, which means it is giga casual for him to do. But then let's actually move into the actual serious feats that Anos is able to do. One of his more impressive showings actually does come earlier on in the series when he actually kills the God of Time, who, with a mere swing of their scythe, said they were going to rupture all of space-time, and Anos caught that attack with his bare hand. Now, at the bare minimum, this is a universal plus feat, because destroying all of space-time would mean you're going to be destroying the universal construct, and that places it a bit higher than just a universal feat, because when you start getting into the universal constructs, you start getting into the higher dimensional construct that contains the universe. And this is actually backed up by the fact that in the manga for this series, he says that his sword, which we'll get into later because his sword is basically its own other character, but he says that his sword is strong enough to destroy all of creation, including the universe, which, if you're someone a bit more well-versed in the Anos like light novels and everything, you will know that this guy gets up into like multiversal and higher tiers, and this already implies that he's going to be getting that higher because he says, oh, don't worry, I can destroy all of creation, meaning higher dimensions, the multiverse and whatnot, but that also includes the universe you're in. Because that's kind of the way that Anos tends to talk. He'll be like, yeah, I'm going to destroy the multiverse, but that's a bit too big brain for you. All you need to worry about is that I'm destroying your universe. It would be like if, say, Frieza in Dragon Ball's like, I'm gonna destroy the universe, but that's a too much big scale for you, so you just worry about your planet that's gonna get destroyed as a byproduct of that. So yeah, already starting off with AP, just going off what the anime already shows us, this dude is anywhere from mountain to country if you really want to lowball him and just beat up some lower tier characters for fun. I don't know why you'd want to bully people like that, but you can do it. But then you can also bring him into tiers where he's going to be universal to universal plus, in which case he's still probably going to dominate because, as we'll get into when we get to his abilities at the later parts of this video, this man is absolutely busted in what he can do. Speed is actually really easy to get into with Anos because you could kind of lowball him to FTL because there's some light-based magics in his show, but it's really not all that serious. My man can just walk and move and stop time. I mean, I already mentioned earlier that he was fighting the God of Time, and the God of Time is like, well, I'm just going to stop time and try to kill you, to which Anos said, I don't really care about that, I'm just going to keep vibing and stop time. But it gets a bit more insane than that because Anos actually does some forms of time traveling in the show by sending himself back in time, himself forward in time, sending other people back in time, showing that he not only is demonstrating some abilities for infinite speed of moving and stop time, but he's also demonstrating immeasurable speed by being unbound by space-time, which he does actually mention, and so it kind of makes sense that he would just be in this immeasurable speed tier if he's completely unbound by time itself. This also just becomes more concrete the later on in the show that you go, as he will later fight against, and forgive my pronunciation of this, but Age's Code Crimson Blood Magic Spear, which is said to also transcend space-time as well. So not only is he fighting the God of Time, who has complete control over all of time, he's unaffected by time itself, he moves and stops time, he time travels and sends other people forward and backward throughout time. To say that this man is not in the infinite immeasurable speed tiers would be a bit ridiculous with his showings. I mean, I think the absolute lowest you can pin him in would be infinite speed, because maybe you don't bind to the immeasurable speed thing, but again, literally unbound by time, is moving forward and backward in time. And for those of you that are not as familiar with what these speed tiers mean, let's just break it down right now. But now we actually get into the fun stuff. I've tried to compile all of his different abilities into similar areas, but just keep in mind there are so many things that he's able to do that this is going to get a little bit crusty. So just try to follow along with me as we go over all the different abilities that he has. So first and foremost, there's the fundamental idea that Anos is a misfit from fate and is therefore labeled as the misfit, as the name of the show entails. And so not only is he a misfit from fate, but he also states that if he finds a bad fate, or something is fated to happen that he doesn't like, he would merely just destroy said fate. So first and foremost, just right off rip, he is immune or unbound by fate and destiny. Anos is a magician. What is magic in the world of the misfit universe, right? Well, magic is made of the soul, spirit, and even deeper than that, it's made of your source. The source is basically the concept that makes up who you are. It is a conceptual ideal. It is a very fundamental thing in the entire series and is quite literally a conceptual thing. Keep that in mind because Anos does a lot of crazy things with the conceptual source. But also keep in mind that magic is also made of spirits and souls, so he can also interact with ethereal / ghost beings. Like I mentioned earlier, he has the ability to rewind time in specific or large areas. One of the better examples that I mentioned earlier is that he sent his 2 female other characters back in time to fuse their sources together to prevent them from dying. And then, as I also mentioned, because of this, he's also unbound by time itself. He can also use this on his opponents, as he also used this time-based ability to BFR someone's mind through time. If you don't know what BFR is, it stands for Battlefield Removal, and it's a win condition in a lot of debates where you're fighting somebody. It's essentially kind of like sealing somebody away, because you essentially put the other person in a position where they can't come back to fight you, because you basically just say lock them in a room or something and they can't escape from that room, so you just basically win by default because they're not able to fight you anymore. And so what he does is he takes your mind and he throws it through time, and you basically just kind of become a husk of your former self because your mind is now 1,000 million bajillion years in the future, so good luck doing anything without your mind. He also has just insane healing abilities, I guess is what we'll call this category, because he can revive people from a mere drop of their blood, but not only that, he can choose how you're revived. He can either completely revive you as per usual, he can revive you even stronger than you were, he can just completely change your biology, as he had this pretty racist teacher early on in the show that tried to attack his mom, and she was a pure blood demon. When he killed her and revived her, he revived her as a half-blood demon. Quite literally, Anos was like, he found some white dude, killed him, and revived him as a Vietnamese guy. It's absolutely insane. But not only that, he can revive people as the undead, as even early on in the show, when he kills this man Zepes, he actually revives him as a zombie and makes him stronger than his brother. But this actually isn't even where the healing stuff ends. You'd think that's already crazy enough, but he actually revives his buddy Ivis after he completely destroyed his source. So basically, he completely eradicated somebody's concept and still brought them back to life. This also obviously means that he's able to seemingly heal his allies nigh instantaneously, and even if he has no knowledge on that person's biology, for instance, when he tries to heal Kanan's new mom when he reincarnates, who is a spirit and has different biology than demons, and he has no idea how to heal some weird spirit disease, he just creates a new formula and cures her right on the spot. Obviously, these healing abilities extend to Anos himself because he can continue to reincarnate and regenerate even if his source is destroyed. So usually in this series, if your source is still intact, you can still revive, right? As long as your concept exists, you can keep regenerating, as long as you're a decent mage. But because Anos is absolutely cracked beyond belief, he can regenerate himself and reincarnate himself even if his concept is completely destroyed. Speaking of his source actually protects his mind and